Diving back into it now on a Tuesday. Look, there's a lot going on ever since Donald Trump took the oath of office at something like 140 different executive orders. But we need to get to that one big, beautiful bill, or it's all going to be for naught. It has to be codified. It has to be passed as legislation, and they're working very hard on that right now. Joining me now from the great state of Wyoming, Congresswoman Harriet Hageman is here. Congresswoman, nice to see you again.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's talk about the bill. What's the roadmap look like right now? At one point, we thought Memorial Day. Now we're hearing more like the 4th of July could be the date that he signs this legislation. It's very important for it to get done so that all this work that's been done isn't just lost, right?
That's correct. And the committees of jurisdiction are individually addressing their particular parts of the bill. So last week I'm on the Judiciary Committee, and last week we worked from 2 o'clock in the afternoon until 11:30 at night, marking up the segment of the bill that comes from Judiciary, primarily associated with immigration funding and the budget. And then today we're going to be working on natural resources and that portion of the bill, and focusing on the budget and funding related to natural resources, whether it's associated with the Bureau of Reclamation or coal or whatever it may be. We've got a whole variety of amendments and the bill that we're going to be addressing today, and several other committees have already completed their work. That is with regard to the House.
Right.
The Senate hasn't yet taken up the bills, but they will be.
Let me start with the immigration comments you made there. Obviously, Wyoming's not a border state, but every state's impacted by what has happened during the Biden administration and the invasion, if you will, of this country. Now, Donald Trump came in. He's issued executive orders on the border. We'll specifically start there because every step of the way, whether it's the border or something else, it seems that there are these federal district court judges who think that they can issue nationwide injunctions on anything the president does, and they go court shopping. Another great example, a Louisiana federal district court judge said, you can't stop funding of Ivy League schools. Congresswoman, what Ivy League school is in Louisiana? None come to mind for me. And so this is just, they're completely out of their lane, aren't they?
Absolutely. And what they're doing is they're taking the authority of really what is in the United States Supreme Court. Yet even in the United States Supreme Court, a party has to convince 5 of the justices that they're correct on the law and the facts. What these district court judges are doing is they're basically crowning themselves as the final arbiter of these decisions, when that is not the way that our court system is set up.
Yeah, it's not constitutional in any way now. 2 or 3 ways to cure this. One of the ways is put legislation through, and there's some effort to do that in the House and the Senate to curb this. The Supreme Court could also weigh in, but we need to get this under control. The federal district judges don't have the right to dictate how Donald Trump governs this nation, do they?
Well, that's one of the problems. It's interesting to me when you listen to leftists talk about this. They talk about the sanctity of the separation of powers and how Donald Trump should not be criticizing the judiciary because the judiciary is a separate branch of the government. Well, when you look at the Constitution, the only court that is mentioned in the Constitution is the United States Supreme Court. And
Correct.
then it is Congress that establishes the lower courts. And we have set up a system where we have district court judges and appellate court judges. The purpose of the district court judges is to decide the cases in front of them and the parties related to the parties that are in front of them. That's why it is such a rarity for judges or courts, district court judges, to issue nationwide injunctions, because that would mean that a judge in California is having a party come before it and dictating what happens in New Jersey. That is not the way that our court system is set up. And that's why we have filed and are pursuing the No Rogue Judges Act, which would limit district court judges' ability to issue nationwide injunctions. Really, they need to stay in their jurisdictional lane, and what that means is that they need to decide the case on the parties in front of them. The other thing that they're ignoring is they're absolutely ignoring standing requirements. As you just noted, in Louisiana, there aren't any Ivy League schools, so they don't even have jurisdiction there.
Right.
But the other thing that is very, very important is under Rule 65, which is the rule on injunctions, the parties are required to post a bond that would cover the costs associated with if they are eventually found to be wrong. So you and I are both anticipating that many of these injunctions are going to be overturned. Yet in the meantime, they are costing the government millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. And nobody is being forced to post a bond, which is exactly contrary to what Rule 65 says.
So they're not following the rules anywhere along the line, which is deeply disturbing. Now, I believe that we'll get this right. Because, look, it shouldn't happen this way. District judges are basically local judges. They have their district. That's it. They don't get to rule over the entire country. And judge shopping, obviously, is a thing. Now, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about Wyoming, energy state. One of the big things that Donald Trump did early on, declare an energy emergency in America. You've got coal, you've got oil, you've got natural gas, you've got the Powder River Basin, which is loaded with energy. How important are these energy policies for the state of Wyoming and for this nation?
For the nation as a whole, energy security is national security. We're the largest coal producer in the nation. We have very, very clean coal. As the president referred to it, beautiful clean coal. We have an abundance of it. We have, as you say, oil and gas. We have uranium. Wyoming is one of the largest energy producers in the nation, and we keep the lights on. The fact is that you cannot use the intermittent resources and expect that you're going to be able to power a first world country. Yet we have a lot of people on the other side who are, hell bent. They're absolutely convinced that we're going to live on, be able to survive on nothing but solar panels and windmills, and it's not true. And it is going to substantially affect the prosperity of this country. Energy security is national security. We want affordable, reliable energy, and that's what we produce in Wyoming.
Yeah, we need vast quantities of cheap energy to power this economy. Speaking of the economy, I want to ask you a couple more things about that. You go back 2 weeks in time, and CNN and MSNBC were all crowing from the top of their lungs that it was going to be the worst April since 1932 on the stock market, and doom and gloom was on the way because of the tariffs. Well, apparently that didn't happen. The stock market turned around. The S&P posted 7 gains in a row over the last few days. It's been a pretty remarkable turnaround. The economy doing pretty well. The tariffs, yes, we need to get to a conclusion and come to some sort of a strategy coming out of the tariffs. But so far, from where I stand, it looks as if they've worked for the most part so far. You say?
It's bringing these countries to the table. And for those who say tariffs don't work, then why do other countries rely upon them? The other thing that I've got to say about the left-wing media is, why do they always bet against the United States of America? Yet they do. It doesn't matter what the issue is. They are going to bet against the United States of America and try to basically spread panic and fear far and wide. And that makes absolutely no sense to me. Yes, we know that there are going to be some bumps and bruises with this, but the fact is, where we have been going, the direction we've been heading is veering off a cliff. We're almost $37 trillion in debt. We have had a trade imbalance with countries around the world for decades. We've had someone who's coming in, who is putting America first and fighting for our values and our issues and to protect this country. The reality is that a strong America makes for a safer world, a more prosperous world. And yet every single policy decision that this president makes, these folks want to not only bet against him, but find every single way that they can to criticize and attack and say that the end is nigh. And that is just simply not what's happening. And we don't believe him anymore. We don't listen.
No, not the case. Congresswoman Harriet Hageman from the great state of Wyoming. Beautiful place, by the way. Good water this year, so the trout fishing will be terrific again this year in Wyoming. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate it. There you have it. I just looked at the snowpack for Wyoming. It's terrific. Ivy and I should spend some time fly fishing there. What do you say? We'll be right back.